Alright guys, we are back with some more MX versus ATV Legends. Today we are checking out the terrain deformation. Now, the terrain deformation is a bit different in this game. I'm not really sure. Some tracks, we already said this in some of our very first videos we did on the game, that the terrain deformation isn't the same on all tracks. So, Supercross appears to have way more terrain deformation than most, if not all, the outdoor tracks. So I have 3 tracks to show you today. This is Detroit, but we also have the roughest, craziest, nastiest track in the game. So that'll be at the end. But we start with Detroit, have a few laps to show you. I did 30 lap races on these tracks. It took forever, and this track just kept getting worse as I kept playing. All the way to lap 30, it felt like this track kept getting more torn up, more ruddy, more rough, just crazy. So the deformation here, the sand was pretty crazy too. You'll see that here in a second, but so the ruts in the rhythm sections weren't so bad. You could see them, and they did affect the bike, and they were deep, but it wasn't that bad. It didn't feel like it made the rhythm sections not fun to play. The Supercross triples, the ruts there that formed would get very deep, and if you don't get into that rut just right, it would literally yank the bike off the track, like send you flying off the track. So you had to get into them. You can see them. You can kind of see what I'm talking about as far as how deep the ruts get on the Supercross triples. So the faces of the Supercross triples got insanely deep ruts. The problem with this crazy deformation is that in the corner, and the track I'm going to show you at the end, the really crazy track, the ruts kind of started to disappear after a while. You ended up with just this really rough, insane corner that you couldn't even really turn the bike in. The rut disappeared, and it just felt like, 200 bikes rode one lap on the track in the mud, and then they let the track dry, and that's how you had to ride it. The bike didn't really turn. So the ruts and the deformation make the game tougher to play, but if you get into the rut and just slow down a bit, it isn't so bad. I mean, realistically, you're gonna have to ride the track slower in real life after, lap 20 versus lap 1. The ruts are gonna form, the track is gonna get rough, and you may even have to change your line. So if you can hit, a different line, if you're doubling in, maybe you could try to triple in, or if you were tripling, maybe you want to try and double in just to take a different jump so you're not jumping off the same spot that has all those ruts. So I do like what they were trying to go for. I mean, it was a good idea, and I think it works pretty good in the game on most of the Supercross tracks. This is Salt Lake or St. Louis, I don't remember. You could see a crazy big rut before the finish line jump, and I didn't get into it great, but if you get into the rut, the bike still turns, you have traction, and it works pretty good, but you have to get into the rut. And most of the time you have to go a bit slower to get into that rut to ride it. You saw the AI is probably the biggest challenge to playing these tracks after. Oh yeah, and the over-under, you could see the metal kind of coming through. The dirt was starting to tear away from. That's actually pretty cool. I mean, it's a weird spot because that means that people were casing that jump, but it's just kind of a cool detail they added into the game. But what I was saying is the AI really struggles on the track when it gets this bad. They bounce all over the place, they ride the wrong direction in a rhythm lane, they get in the way, they crash constantly. It is a bit frustrating with the AI. I wish the AI could ride the track better, but, whatever. This is Orlando, and this track is hands down the nastiest track in the game. This track yeah, lap 1, no problem. Sweet track, cool design, pretty fun track, but this track gets so rough you can't really play it. So you see in some of the corners on lap 1 here, the bike turns a bit weird. I think it's because that corner is predetermined to deform a certain way. And I said I never really have a problem with the bouncing in the game, and I don't. I really don't, because first of all, I'm on PC, so I know consoles have different issues than I have, but I also don't play on the tracks when they get this rough, usually. And so that's why I don't, but here I have some problems. You see how on the face of a triple we just bounce for no reason. I'm not really sure what made us do that. And then throughout the track, we just get weird bounces on the straightaway for no reason. And I had other issues such as that. And I think it's because the terrain deformation is so crazy, the physics of the game just don't work on this kind of a track when it gets this bad. You know what I mean? So, yeah, lap 29 on this track was very, very difficult. The corners didn't even really have ruts in them anymore. They were just really, really rough. I mean, the ruts just kind of disappeared, and trying to even keep the bike grounded was super difficult. Now, you could still ride the track, we do, but you see on lap 29 we get more bouncing, and it definitely is due to the terrain deformation. I don't have that bounce that happens with the track being this rough when the track isn't rough. I mean, I rarely have a weird bounce happen to me if the track isn't this rough. I know some of you guys on console have had that problem. I haven't. I'm not going to talk about a problem if I'm not having it. But on this track, with this terrain deformation, we are having the bouncing issue. So it is a problem. I haven't experienced it like some of you guys have, but even the AI is bouncing all over the place. The AI just cannot ride these tracks when they get this rough. But yeah, the roughest track, the most insane track, just really crazy. And if I had to guess, it's because of the insane terrain deformation on this specific track. But these 3 tracks I showed you were probably, in my opinion, the 3 most intense, crazy. If you want to challenge and have a tough time playing a track, go try out these tracks on 30 lap races and see how it works for you. But at the end here, I have a normal track, normal supercross track with more normal terrain deformation. This was, I don't remember what the name of this track was, but the way it is right now is basically as bad as it was gonna get. It never got really worse than what you're seeing here. So yeah, I mean, this type of deformation isn't so bad. You have 2-3 main ruts around the track, and I mean, some of the corners could get really rough, but as long as you stayed in that rut, it wasn't so bad. It makes it tough, but it should be tough, right? So this is kind of how most of the tracks tear up, similar to what you're seeing here, and it's doable. It makes it challenging, but it isn't impossible. The one thing I wish we could see is more of this kind of terrain deformation added to the outdoor tracks, right? So some of the outdoor tracks seem to have some terrain deformation, but for the most part, they really don't have the lines that you can cut around the track like you can in Supercross, and I'm not really sure why. If I had to guess, it's because most of the national tracks are already pre-made pretty rough, so maybe that's why, but I wish they could add at least a tiny bit more. I mean, Unadilla, the replica, especially on the replicas, but Unadilla has some terrain deformation. I didn't check every track, but I did try some. Redbud doesn't have very much at all, but yeah, Unadilla, a few other ones do have some. I just wish they could add more terrain deformation similar to what we have in Supercross here. But yeah, those 3 Supercross tracks are crazy, and I encourage you guys to go try it out. It is pretty fun, but it can get a bit buggy, and Orlando in particular can be a very, very frustrating track to play. So Let me know in the comments if you guys have tried this out, if you like the way this crazy deformation is, or if you wish it would be toned down a bit. Yeah, I think it's fun, but it is a bit extreme on those 3 tracks. But you guys and girls are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the support on the channel lately. It really does mean a lot. And until the next video, take it easy.